Vicky's getting ready for the prom.
Good morning, prom queen.
Only nominated and not the winner.
But she's about to get a visit from the past.
I've been seeing things. Hallucinations about Mary Lou Maloney. That girl who died at our school.
My mind plays strange tricks.
It's not my mind, damn you. It's Mary Lou Maloney.
We're in trouble, you and I.
What are you talking about?
Mary Lou Maloney has come back.
It's like I'm not in control of myself. I am afraid I might hurt somebody.
Somehow her spirit has come back from the grave and she will come after you and me.
Now, Mary Lou has found her way back. And Mary Lou is coming out to party.
See you later.
Really an interesting producer, Tony Kramreiter. I was approaching everybody, knocking on every door, and his door finally opened and said, "Who are you and why do you keep bothering me?" And so he had one called a play called The Mark of Cain, which was actually quite good. And this producer, of course, who wanted a very contained film, not a lot of cast, not a lot of locations, and we had very little money, but we had a lot of fun. We put together a small crew and put that together. And from there, the producer of that one, Ray Sager, he had joined Simcom, which was run by Peter Simpson. I think it was because of Ray that they got interested in me, and they were doing a series of films, 3 films they were going to do. But I read the 3 scripts, and the script it was called The Haunting of Hamilton High. Nothing whatsoever to do with Prom Night. And I said, this is a very inventive black humor film. I quite like the tone of it. I quite like the writer, Ron Oliver. I thought it was terrific. So they were surprised that I picked that one. They said, okay, well, you go ahead and do that. This isn't a sequel. Why do they call it a sequel? It's not Prom Night II. The characters are different, the story's different. Prom Night was very successful, and I guess they said, well, let's cash in on that and we'll get the suckers in the door and so forth. The film wasn't a huge success, but it was for Peter Simpson. Sam Goldwyn Jr. saw the film and loved it, and they did in those days would do negative pickup deals. So he bought the film, the US rights. I think the film caught in the vicinity of $3 million, I think. Sam Goldwyn Jr. paid like 4 or 5, and then took the film and whatever the hell he did with it was on him. But the Canadian producer did very well out of that. Nobody was very happy with the ending that as written, and I can't remember what the ending was. The producer, Peter Simpson, was one of those producers who what he really wanted to do was direct. And then he went ahead and had written, and I don't know whether Ron was involved in that or not, possibly, quite possibly, just some additional scenes they put in. So there's a new scene, I didn't know about that. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, new ending, which I thought worked better than the one that was written. And I thought, well, that's it. Yeah, it works. And I could see where he was going with it. I said, I sense it's going to be another Prom Night down the road from here. When I eventually saw the film, it was pretty much the way I directed it. The thing that I added was when the girl runs out in terror, I said, when you go after her, you're not running, you're just very slowly walking. And I did say, just come around the corner totally naked and just walk toward the camera. And I said, that'll be kind of creepy and scary. And it did work out that way. And I was surprised they put that shot in. Good on the producer for having the guts to leave that in. By and large, I was very happy with it. I remember sitting in a theater, and I sat near the back on the aisle, and there was a guy across the aisle one of those horror aficionados that just, they go to the movie alone, you know, and he's got his popcorn. And I knew when, okay, here comes the big shock is coming up. And I just watched him and the popcorn went all over there. I was very happy to, I said, boy, that little gag worked. That was my favorite scene of her with the other girl. I think a lot of that was ad-libbed as well. And I did that scene, which nobody really noticed at the time, but it was just, all right, I'm gonna put the camera here, did a very slow tracking shot in toward them. And the take that's in there is take one. And it was interesting, there's some show on, it's a podcast. It was a show where they get an older film, they show it to their guests, and the guests come on and discuss the film. And that film was Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night II. The guests were Charlize Theron and Seth Rogen. And they loved the film. They hadn't seen it before, so they looked at it, and the show was an hour long. They spent an hour talking about this, which I couldn't believe. But Charlize Theron was the first one outside of myself that said her favorite scene is the one in the bathroom. And she said if she could, she would give her Oscar to that girl that played Jessie. It had to do with the tax dollars. If you had a certain percentage of money spent on Canadian cast, you'd get a better tax advantage. Half the Canadian movies would want some kind of star. And he had sort of a name in that genre, and he was Canadian, so welcome aboard. Anyone who's famous was Canadian, they bring them back up. So all those expatriate Canadians made a lot of money by coming back and doing 6 weeks work back in Canada. Canadian critics always dumped on Canadian films. I mean, it's something, I don't know what it is in this country, but homegrown movies are really looked down on. With Mary Lou, got terrible reviews here. And it was it's a better film than those reviews reflected. And in the States, the New York Times and the LA Times gave it rave reviews. And I just said, well, it's not as bad as those guys said it was, and it's not as good as these guys said it was. So it's somewhere in the middle. It's, you buy your popcorn, you know, it's that kind of movie. So after a while, you just tend to ignore what people say about your work. There was a horror ram up here. They hold it every year, and they invite people there, and they sell horror videos and have talks and have special guests. And they invited me along, plus Lisa Sradge, who played Mary Lou. She looks exactly the same. I said, do you have a portrait of yourself that's aging somewhere in the attic? It was incredible. I mean, no change at all. So we're sitting at a table, and somebody came over to me and said, Mr. Pittman, I just want you to know that your film changed my life. I didn't quite know what to say. And it's funny, the things that come back after years, people come back and say, what of your work do people remember most? And it's like the Saturday Night the Movie interviews that I did, and Hello, Prom Night II. Other stuff that you're like really proud of, it just sort of disappeared. It's back there somewhere, you know, and people really don't know. But particularly movies of the week and cable movies that I did, which sort of, they're hard to find and that, but some of my best work is there. I did one Kurt Vonnegut, based on a Kurt Vonnegut short story, Harrison Bergeron, which I think is very, very good. And at the time was well reviewed in that, but it goes on the cable network as a short video release and then sort of disappears. Oh, another thing I want to tell you, Monday of this week, I got a script, a prom night script. The whole high school in the beginning is destroyed, and then all the students, not just Mary Lou, when the school's rebuilt on the ground where all these students were killed, all the students come back and kill all the other students. So it's like Mary Lou, but it's a zombie thing. I just sent him a note and I said, I think this film needs two things. One, you need a young person to direct it, and B, you need somebody who has a love of the zombie genre. And as to number one, I'm not, and as to number two, I don't.